Thanks for coming back to watch my video descriptions of my 2018 acrylic painting series on Brave New World, the 1932 novel by Aldous Huxley. I am Ian Young, the artist. I spent the first 5 paintings laying the foundation of the story and introducing most of the main characters. We're far enough along into the series that if I recap them at the start of every video, every time, they'll become too long and redundant for those who have already been following. So if you're lost or what I say isn't making sense, please go back and watch the first 5 videos in order, and I'm sure some of it will start to make sense. At the end of painting number 5, dissenting Alpha Plus psychologist Bernard Marx took Holiday to the same New Mexico reservation that Thomas Graham Bell had left Linda Lysenko pregnant at 30 years ago and abandoned her there. Bernard finds her grown son John and Linda and brings them back with him to London, along with a girl named Lenina Crowell who went with him in the first place. Bernard secretly wants Lenina all for himself, but in the future, monogamists are seen as sadists and abusers, so he has to keep his feelings to himself. I should also mention Lenina, on the other hand, is instantly attracted to John the Savage when they meet and wants to engage him right away, which is the 26th century term for sex. And she makes it obvious, but Bernard discourages her, and the matter doesn't resurface again until later in the book. Thomas Graham Bell, the director who left Linda pregnant there 30 years ago, is now actually the direct superior of Bernard Marx. The two had butted heads for years, and Thomas had tried convincing World Controller Mustafa Mon to demote Bernard to a less powerful position time and time again, but Bernard would never do it for the special bias he has for Bernard for whatever reason. Huxley still never explains that. So Thomas had paper trailed Bernard Marx's indiscretions for some time and had finally swayed the voting committee and even Mond himself to sign off on Bernard's termination while Bernard had been on holiday. But when the four arrived back from New Mexico and Thomas presents Bernard with his termination papers, Bernard reveals Linda and the tables turn. Thomas goes green, and then John, with Thomas's same fair hair and eyes and complexion, runs out from behind Linda and yells "Father" in front of all the most important political people in London, and there's an uproar of shock and laughter. The type of reaction you get if you stormed a live political debate and called a senator a chicken fucker with the proof to back it up. So the scandal goes viral instantly, and it's impressive Huxley predicted the power of the internet to spread the word like that in 1932 when he wrote it. World Controller Mustafa Mond can't cover the scandal up. The mockery gets so loud the police have to lead Thomas out the rear exit while the paparazzi snap picture after picture. And at this point, Mond, who was supposed to be all happy, all wise, all compassionate all the time, is royally pissed. Thomas was a good friend and loyal employee of the state to Mustafa, and a contemporary. Thomas never made a single mistake as a director his entire career, but Mond has to sentence Thomas to a re-education center in Iceland to life, with no possibility of return. He gives Thomas a similar job with similar pay, and all the dope he wants, and scantily clad snow bunnies, but he'll never see his friend and colleague again. Even worse, Mond has no choice but to promote Bernard to his job's vacancy, who smiles ear to ear at the news and infuriates Mond and makes Mond feel betrayed by the person he's gone to bat for time and time again, over and over. To top this all off, John becomes an instant celebrity, whether Mond likes it or not. And even though Mond has been born and bred to preach happiness and forgiveness, he holds kind of a grudge against John, even though John cannot be any more of an innocent bystander at this point in the book. Which brings up one of the main lessons of the book, that we as human beings are emotional more than we are logical, as much as we'd like to think otherwise. Our emotions are always running the show, and most of us do what makes us happy first, even when we're being selfless. So let's get to the painting. Here's the short-haired Bernard Marx on the left, and the taller, blonder Thomas Graham Bell here on the right, with John the Savage, his mother Linda, and the ghost of the youth of John the Savage here in the middle between them, trying to get reacquainted. I use the buzzsaw as a metaphor for Thomas's life and job and everything he's believed in his whole life being cut down and taken from him in the blink of an eye and in a split second. Obviously, there's no mention of a buzzsaw in the science fiction novel, but I felt it was a good metaphor and was a bit stronger than a painting of some guy just gasping. Here is Iceland in the lower center of the painting, and where Thomas is sent after his dismissal with a suitcase packed and ready to go. He's watching the ship leave from way down here, and the snow bunnies are dressing him and putting earmuffs on him and other proper attire and feeding him pills and kind of reconditioning him to his new life out on the island. I put long-sleeved kind of winter uniforms on Bernard and Thomas because of how much cold, icy symbolism the painting had. I left him in short sleeves down here while he watches the ship fly away and leave him before the snow bunnies come to comfort him. It seemed like a good idea to make them long sleeve at the time. Now that the series is over, I kind of look back on this painting and part of me wishes I hadn't. It was intentional, though. It wasn't an accident, though I'm not sure if that makes it any better. Here's the crowd pointing and laughing at Thomas, which is really the main part of the story in this piece. They're mocking him for fathering a biological child, and you can see all the people way up here all pointing and laughing down at him. There are test tube babies all around, sort of like in painting number 2, where they're being grown for specific jobs and specific functions. I did have one falling off the counter here and breaking and letting spermatozoa kind of go where they please as sort of a bit of symbolism for Thomas spilling his seed in the desert and Linda failing to take her birth control and John as a result of that. I included some New Mexico symbolism from the last piece, like the ghosts of the past have followed the ghost of young John the Savage and the adult John and Linda back from New Mexico in the American Southwest to haunt Thomas and to finger and point him out as the one who left them there those 30 years ago. Finally, in the far corner, we have kind of the front of a movie theater, symbolic of John's celebrity status. There's a lot of people taking pictures, even some people holding larger cameras like an official film crew. There's some movie posters there and a door to enter the Feely Palace, I guess is what I should call it, not a movie theater. Because once John gets back to civilization after this scandal settles down, the news people take a liking to John. Here in the bed is Linda. As soon as she arrives back, of course, the first thing she wants is some of the super drugs that she's had to do without for 30 years, which they give her because she asked for them. And once they kick in, that's all she can think about. Due to their strength, there's an expression, making up for lost time, where another one is where they say if you fall, some people fall off the wagon, they fall really, really hard. Both of those can kind of fit what Linda goes through at this point in the book. Once she gets back to civilization, she just wants to pop pills and zone out and be high all the time. And the doctors and the specialists and the alphas in society reassure John that that's okay and that's what she wants and that's normal, and once she adjusts, she'll get back to talking and being social and being her old self, but that winds up not being true. But they kind of distract John while she's soma tripping is the term they use in the book. John is taken on a tour and shown around the world and all of the pleasures of civilization in 26th century London, so he's kind of distracted after that. What they don't what John doesn't realize is in the 26th century, death is celebrated and death is social, and if she winds up overdosing, it's seen as a good thing to everybody but John, and that's not something they inform him of. That's really all I have to say about this. Another weird, very weird piece. Thank you for watching video number 6 of my Brave New World series. Stay tuned for video number 7, Tour of Civilization, the explanation of Bokanovsky's process and the cloning of the twins, where the novel gets even stranger. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.